I believe it is those three fields that will in fact determine our future. And there's a lot of exciting stuff that has happened, and we're going to focus on what has happened today. But my prediction is that as in science, within 1 year, we have 2 and maybe some 4 or 5 vaccines that have suddenly emerged that would not have been possible before. And so there's remarkable things that have happened, and I think that we're going to see many more happen in the future. So creativity, it's a magical thing. If you think that the world's greatest inventions came from the fevered minds of solitary geniuses, think again. Mostly what geniuses did was in perfecting workable designs. When you imagine inventors, you probably picture a lone genius in a laboratory concocting brilliant devices, experimenting and redesigning until some concept or contraption works perfectly. At that point, the new inventions unveil to the world a stunning piece of new technology that instantly changes everything. Well, not quite. Well, you've got part of it right. There's certainly a lot of redesigning and experimenting, but it takes a lot longer than you think. It also takes more people than the lone genius. When you read about these world-changing inventions, no invention is created in a vacuum. Every single one was built on previous inventions created by other inventors years, decades, or even centuries before. Every invention has problems, and it might not be until some other inventor comes along that gets it solved. To confuse things further, it usually isn't the original inventor who gets all the credit, but rather the inventor who made the one crucial improvement that makes us all want one. I hope you enjoy this.
All right, guys, we need some ideas. We got crushed last quarter. We have to change something.
How about a focus group?
Not now, Todd. We need real ideas.
We're spending too much
Money.
We need to spend less.
Money.
Can we get a visual for that?
Okay, so right now we're spending this much money. What if we start spending this much money?
What if we spent less money and only one line for
You cut out a whole line.
manufacturing line?
That's brilliant. No manufacturing.
No manufacturing.
We won't make any of the furniture. We'll let them make the furniture.
Yes, DIY.
Oh, people love DIY. Pinterest. Wait, hold on. No, because we have to give them tools.
One tool,
Oh, we make it cheaper.
an Allen wrench.
One Allen wrench puts together all the furniture.
People will hate it.
Me. Love it. And because they're going to assemble it, we can pack it smaller. Little boxes, big warehouse. All you need. Yes. Oh, wait. But when they show up to the warehouse, they won't know which box to get.
Showroom.
Yes, the whole place is just a showroom.
At my last job, we would
Shut up, Todd.
Todd, please. This one Halloween, I went to a corn maze.
Corn maze.
So I was in the corn maze and I said, wow, if there was just a bedroom here, I'd really buy everything in the bedroom.
We make a corn maze.
We make a corn maze.
But instead of corn, it's products. Yes, we have a start and we have a finish. So they go through, and if they want to buy curtains, they first have to pass through
the kitchen.
the kitchen,
But before the kitchen, the bedroom.
the bedroom,
And before the bedroom,
the throw pillows.
the throw pillows.
Yeah.
Yes. Ah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Ah. Okay, all right,
Sorry.
hold on. Women are gonna love this because what do women like to do?
Shop.
Correct.
This is a little sexist.
Shut up, Todd. How do we get the men in the store?
Let me think. Got it. 2 words. Meat. Balls. Meatballs. 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 Meatballs.
Yes, yes. Write it down. Meatballs. Todd, write this down. Meatballs.
Meatballs.
Yes, meatballs. So while the men are annoyed that their wives are over here spending money, they're in our cafeteria doing what?
Spending money.
Okay, we can't just be meatballs though. All right, what else do we have?
We can hire that marketing.
Todd, please. Hold on, let me call my 3-year-old.
Okay.
See what he thinks. Hey, buddy, what are your
Hey,
favorite
buddy.
foods? Cinnamon rolls, hot dogs, pizza. What's that? Soft serve ice cream. What did Grandma say? Mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes.
That's it.
That's all we need.
What about French fries?
No one likes French fries, Todd.
Todd, this isn't McDonald's.
No one's gonna think this is a real thing. It's too new. It's too different.
What if we just say it's Swedish?
That's perfect. No one knows anything about sweet.
I know, but
It's-
where even is it?
And we'll use Swedish words for all the products.
Yeah.
This isn't a cup. This is a flugu.
And people will be like, flooring. Cool.
Yes, 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 yes. Anything you can find in a house will sell.
Plants.
Spicuses and ferns, but none of it's real. It'll be the only thing that comes assembled. All we need now is a name. You just need a name. You know, Todd, I don't know what you're gonna say, but I don't want you to say anything, okay? The grown-ups are doing good work over here. I need you to not say anything.
Okay. What did you say?
Say it again, Todd.
Say it again. Okay. IKEA.
Yeah! Woo, woo, woo! Really nice work, guys. Todd, excellent work. Hey, martinis on me. Let's go to Chili's.
I think we'll make happy hour. I really like Todd. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Well, anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting and amusing. So I hope you enjoyed it. Now I'm going to start with a little bit of engineering. Engineering is going to get short shift in here, except engineering is woven through things. So I'm going to take a moment. By the way, I have to say that there are billions, billions, trillions of inventions and innovations and so forth that I could have included here. And so this is only a sampling of some of the great ones or some of the more interesting ones. So first of all, in terms of one of the engineering masterpieces of all time is the Great Wall of China. Made of stone, brick, tamped earth, wood, and other materials. It's a little over 13 miles from east to west of China with a height of about 16 to 26 feet. The Great Wall of China, long history, 2,300 years. Built to protect the Chinese states and empires against raids. It actually didn't work all that well. This is me a couple of summers ago on the Great Wall of China. And as I said, it was a great wall. And of course, it's been rebuilt in order to show it to tourists. But this is a better view of the Great Wall of China, which winds over the mountains north of Beijing. The Great Pyramid. Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure in history for 3,800 years until 1889. So what do you think eclipsed it in 1889? Would you believe that was the Eiffel Tower? Up until then, nothing had surpassed it. And of course, nobody knows exactly how it was built. It's not a habitable kind of a structure. There are 3 known chambers inside, the kings, the queens, and it was originally covered with casing stones made of highly polished limestone, and reflecting the sun's light made the pyramid shine. Of course, that part of it has been peeled away, but they still sit there and exist. The Brooklyn Bridge, a hybrid cable-stayed suspension bridge in New York City, one of the oldest roadway bridges in the United States, connecting Manhattan and Brooklyn, spanning the East River, span of just about 1,600 feet. The first steel wire suspension bridge. John Augustus Roebling did it, and was a long time in building, 1869 to 83. And it had some innovative procedures it used to build it, the floating caissons that were used. That's a study in and of itself. And there's a book about the building of the Brooklyn Bridge you should get a hold of. McDonald, Donahue, no, who am I thinking of? Well, anyway, McCullough, the author, did a tremendous job of writing about it. The Panama Canal, now 2 channels that go across the Isthmus of Panama, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, and it shortened the trip by 9,000 miles. It used to be a 15,000-mile trip to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it's a remarkable engineering feat. The Burj Khalifa, the Dubai Tower, still is the tallest structure building in the world. It is 2,700 plus feet, centerpiece of a larger development and so forth. It was completed in 2009. The Jeddah Tower is supposed to be even taller, and we don't know when, if ever, it's going to open because it has halted its construction. But that will be in Saudi Arabia. and it will be the tallest once it is built. This is the English Channel, the Channel, Eurotunnel, a rail route between Europe and between France and Great Britain. Started in 1888, opened in 1994. Remarkable task. And one of the great challenges of it was when they were building from both sides is to get it to come out so they would meet in the middle. And they actually came up within just a couple of feet of being exactly on plan. The Great Hoover Dam, hope you've all seen it. Many of you have, most of you probably have. And it is a concrete arch gravity dam in the Black Canyon of the Colorado River. Constructed between 1930 and 36, the highest concrete arch dam in the United States. It impounds Lake Mead, and it's a pretty impressive kind of a structure. I am told by something I have heard that if mankind went away, all human beings disappeared, that the whole thing works so automatically that it would still be generating electricity for decades into the future. Remarkable. And they say also that the concrete is still curing on the very inside of that massive structure. Going back in time, the Aqueduct of Segovia, water conveyance structure, built entirely without the use of mortar. It carries water 11 miles near Segovia, Spain. And this is a picture of it, of course. It's quite a remarkable structure. You consider that it was done really 2,000 years ago, 2,100 years ago. Built in 2 levels. The top pillars are both shorter and narrower than on the lower level. And the top structure is the channel through which water flows. The Qing Haiwan Bridge, world's longest bridge over water, 26.5 miles, nearly 16 miles, which lie directly over the water. The Golden Gate Bridge, most beautiful bridge in the world, they say. A suspension bridge with overhead cables connects San Francisco Bay, goes over San Francisco Bay and goes to the north side of, somebody will have to help me with the name. I've forgotten the name of the town, Sausalito. And it goes 746 feet into the sky, 100 feet beneath it. It's quite an impressive structure. Now we go into some other things we might not think about as being innovative, but they in fact have influenced our lives. Fire. Though fire is natural, it marked a remarkable discovery in the history of mankind. The controlled use of fire, from colorful lighting to delicious cooking. And it alters our landscape too. Ancient people may have become acquainted with fire, which started from natural sources, and then they later figured out how to make it themselves. The earliest evidence of cooking and so forth comes from the Kenya region about 1 million years ago, and the evidence of cooked food is found almost 2 million years ago. The wheel, another structure that's pretty basic, remarkably that some civilizations did not have the wheel. Most of the civilizations in North and South America did not have the wheel, as we know the use of the wheel. The penultimate engineering marvels, one of the most famous inventions, influenced many other things. We know that wheel was found in Mesopotamia 3500 BC, that's 4,500 years ago, and it's a very vital thing in our lives because it's not only a road that are used, that we need roads in order to use the wheel for conveyance. The oldest one of those is found 3100 BC, made transportation of goods faster and more efficient. And then we added horses to that. But if it had been used only for transportation, it wouldn't have been that as important as it has been in history. For example, the wheel can be used for a lot of other things than sticking them on a cart to carry grain. Tens of thousands of other inventions require wheels to function, from water wheels to power mills to gears and cogs that allowed even ancient cultures to create complex machines. Cranks and pulleys need wheels to work. A large amount of modern technology still depends on the wheel, like centrifuges and so forth, jet engines, power plants, countless others. Now, another basic one, the plow. We don't think too much about the common plow, but we probably should. Compared to some of the gleaming electronic inventions that fill our lives today, the plow just isn't that exciting. Simple cutting tool used to carve a furrow into the soil, churning it up to expose nutrients and prepare it for planting. Yet the plow is probably the one invention that made all of the others possible. No one knows who invented it, exactly when it came to be. It probably developed independently in many different places at the same time. And prior to the plow, humans were subsistence farmers or hunter-gatherers. Their lives were devoted solely to finding enough food to survive from one season to the next. Growing food added some stability to life, but doing it by hand labor was intensive, took a long time, and the plow changed that. Plows made the work easier, faster, and the improvements made farming efficient so that they could harvest far more food than they needed to survive. Therefore, they could then take the surplus they had and trade for goods or services. If you could get food by trading, then you could devote yourself to day-to-day existence to something else other than growing food, such as producing the goods and services that were suddenly in demand. This drove the invention of written language, number systems, fortifications, and militaries. As populations gathered to engage in this activity, cities grew and emerged. It's not a stretch to say the plow is responsible for the creation of human civilization. In modern times, John Deere, I think his name was John Deere, invented the plow as we know it in the early 19th century. And the compass, created for spiritual and navigational purposes, the earliest compasses were more likely invented by the Chinese around 1000 BC. It was made of lodestones, naturally magnetized iron ore. The invention of the electromagnet in 1825 brought about the modern compass. And of course, today we depend on GPS for everything we're doing to navigate. And then the automobile, internal combustion engine. The 19th century invention by Belgian engineer Etienne Lenoir in 1859 and improved by Germany's Nikolaus Otto in 1876 converts chemical energy into mechanical energy. And it overtook the steam engine, and of course we all use that in our cars and planes today. But Elon Musk and the other dozens of new electric car manufacturers are changing, so this technology will have a different role in the future. Think about gasoline and the importance of it as an invention, as a discovery. Without gas, there couldn't be the first industrial revolution in the automobile industry. Gasoline is a fuel derivative of oil. Shortly, it's caused gas, petrol in other places around the world. It's transparent petroleum-derived liquid used as an essential fuel in internal combustion engines. It's the byproduct of the invention here we're talking about is the numerous processes used to improve the quality. Initially, gas was discarded. During 1859, Edwin Drake dug the first oil well in western Pennsylvania and refined the oil to produce what they needed at that time, which was kerosene, to produce the kerosene for their lamps that lighted their homes. Although the distillation produced gas, he discarded it as he was unaware of the importance that it had. Till 1892, the prominence of gas wasn't recognized. The first gas pump came about in the 1880s, and today we're concerned about its impact on environmental issues. So then we lead to the automobile. Foundation to the modern car was laid in 1886 by German inventor Carl Benz. Cars did not become widely available until the 20th century. Henry Ford innovated mass production techniques that became standard for Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, and many other companies around the world. However, he certainly wasn't the only person to develop a horseless carriage. The history of the automobile reflects a worldwide evolution. Dozens of spin-off industries blossomed, creating thousands of new jobs. Oil and steel became two well-established industries. Vehicle production and sales are one of the major indicators of economic status. Moreover, it influenced the technological advances in petroleum refining, steel making, paint, plate and glass manufacturing, and other industrial processes, the use of rubber, you name it. The spin-off has been tremendously important in civilization's development. This is a picture of a 1906, I think it says here somewhere. Anyway, this is Ford's $600 automobile. And it lists all of the places where it had branch retail stores. And notice down at the very bottom, really not all that many places, and they're advertising for agents to sell their car somewhere across the country. This is the Model N. The steam engine mobilized industry, the automobile mobilized people. While ideas had been around for a long time, combining the internal combustion engine, it really lets this whole industry take off. And Henry Ford's improvement in the production process and effective marketing brought the price and desire for owning an auto into the reach of most Americans. Europeans soon followed. By the early 1920s, you could buy a Model T for about $300 or $400, which was pretty cheap even for that time. The automobile's effect on commerce, society, and culture is hard to overestimate. Motorists can jump in our car and go wherever we want, whenever we want, and we expand the size of any community to the distance we're willing to drive to shop or visit friends. And we have, of course, the highways that have been a spin-off from that. So we have these marvelous highways in America that allow us to go thousands of miles very easily. And we have built up the infrastructure of gasoline stations and so forth, and fast food places, etc. All of those are spin-offs from this great industry. Our cities, in fact, are largely designed and built around automobile access, with paved roads, parking lots taking up huge amounts of space and a big chunk of our government's budgets. The auto industry has fueled enormous economic growth worldwide, but it's also generated a lot of pollution. And this is an industry that's in evolution. We are moving increasingly towards electric powered cars. I'm personally not very persuaded that until I can go from one place to the other and get 300 or 400 miles at a time and then can recharge within 5 minutes, I'm not sure how well that's going to transition. Anyway, then we have the steam engine. The steam engine. Probably should have had these in reverse order maybe, but Thomas Slavery patented the first practical steam engine in 1698, one of the greatest inventions ever. Later in 1781, James Watt patented an improved steam engine that went on to fuel one of the most momentous technological leaps in human history during the first industrial revolution. This led to an improvement in transportation and agriculture and manufacturing industry, and it, in fact, kind of sets the standard for the internal combustion engine that's going to come later. Prior to the invention of the steam engine, most products were made by hand. Water wheels and draft animals provided the only industrial power available, which clearly had its limits. This was the Industrial Revolution changed mankind beyond any simple description. It liberated mankind from the drudgery of life that they had been living. And the steam engine was a major part of that. The concept of using steam to power engines has been around for thousands of years, but it wasn't until 1712 that it was harnessed for work. The first work, by the way, was pumping water out of mines, and the mining industry in Great Britain was very important. And the coal mines and so forth would fill with water, and this allowed them to procure more fuel. He modified a Newcomen engine by adding a separate condenser. He also developed a way for the engine to produce rotary motion, which may be just as important as the efficiency gains. Thus, Watt is often considered the inventor of the steam engine. Newcomen and Watt's engines actually used the vacuum of condensing steam to drive the pistons, but not the pressure of steam expansion. This made the engines bulky. It was the high-pressure steam engine developed by Richard Trevithick and others that allowed for steam engines small enough to power a train. All of these are innovations. They're progressive. One builds on the other. One takes an innovation and they come up with a new way to look at it and so forth. Not only did steam engines power factories that made the rapid production of goods possible, they also powered the trains and steamships that carried the goods around the world. While the steam engine has been eclipsed by electric and internal combustion engines in areas of transport and factory power, they're still incredibly important. Most power plants in the world actually generate electricity using steam turbines, whether the steam is heated by burning coal, natural gas, or a nuclear reactor. Concrete, something we don't think about as an innovation and a creation. The most important, widely used man-made material. It's a composite material. This composed of rough composite bonding together with a fluid cement that hardens over time. Most concretes are lime-based, asphalt concrete, and polymer concretes. Earlier, limestone was used as a crude cement, as the materials in combination through modern concrete was invented. One of the key ingredients of concrete is cement. The foundation of cement came about 1300 BC. Middle Eastern builders coated the outside of their clay fortresses with a thin, moist, burning limestone, which chemically reacted with gases in the air to form a hard, protective surface. Around 6500 BC, the first concrete-like structures were built. By 3000 BC, the Egyptians were using early forms of concrete. 700 BC, the significance of hydraulic lime was found. By 1824, the use of Portland cement was invented by Joseph Aspdin of England, and Portland cement hardens underwater, which makes it significant. George Bartholomew laid down the first concrete street in the US in 1891, which still exists, and I wasn't able to find out where it still exists. By the 19th century, the use of steel reinforced concrete was developed. In 1902, steel reinforced concrete designed and built an apartment building in Paris. And then also we are using some of that at Orly Airport in Paris. Railways. Railways is a mode of transport that can carry a large number of passengers with ease of comfort and or heavy loads to long distances. The most important, to this day, the most efficient form of water transportation is the ship powered by steam. The most important land transportation is still the railroad, even with the advent of trucks and other kinds of things. Modern train history is around 200 years old, and it revolutionizes everything that happens. Earlier mode of transport was carts pulled by animals. During 1500 to 1800, wagon ways were common in Europe, which was used in mining. After the invention of the steam engine, more researches were carried out through the world. The commercial appearance of train networks came in the late 1820s, and the pioneer was George Stephenson. His train, the Rocket, which is the one pictured on the lower right down there, gained rapid expansion across their newly acquired lands. And they built the first railway in 1825. The Rocket opened the first railroad route. And the first railroad track in the United States was only 13 miles long, but caused a lot of excitement when it opened in 1830. Charles Carroll, the last surviving signer of the Declaration of Independence, laid the first stone when construction on the track began in Baltimore in July of 1828. There's also, doing this from memory, there was concern that if you ever went as fast as 20 miles an hour, people would go mad. So they didn't know how to deal with speed yet. Little did they know what was still coming. Of course, the airplane, December 17th, 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright achieved the first powered, sustained, and controlled airplane. And those are the three indicators: powered, sustained, and controlled. Flying machines have been contemplated ever since Leonardo da Vinci, but the Wright brothers became the first major success. But they weren't the first, as you see. Beginning with gliders, the duo laid the foundation for modern aeronautical engineering, and all of the planes that fly today fly based on the same principles that powered what they did at Kitty Hawk. Possibility today to fly over thousands of miles in less time would not have been made possible if the aircraft were not invented. Huge impact on the world. And now we hitch to something a little bit more modest, the nail. I don't think you think much about the nail, probably. Sophisticated human life that we have today would not have been possible without the invention of a small nail. They provide one of the best clues in determining the age of historic buildings. Prior to the invention of nails, wood structures were built by geometrically interlocking adjacent boards. The invention of nails goes back to several thousand years and is possible only after the development of casting and shaping a metal. Around 3400 BC, bronze nails were found in Egypt. According to the University of Vermont, the hand-wrought nails were a norm until the 1790s and early 1800s. By 1913, 90% of nails produced in the US were steel wire nails. And other types of nails include pins, tacks, brads, spikes, staples, wire nails. Thomas Jefferson at Monticello, one of the things that they did there to make money for his plantation was to make nails. And it was a major enterprise for them. And that's what a lot of the slaves were involved in, making nails at Monticello. Optical lenses. From glasses to microscopes and telescopes, optical lenses have greatly expanded the possibilities of our vision. They have a long history, first developed by the ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamians, with key theories of light and vision contributed by the ancient Greeks. Optical lenses were also instrumental components of creating media technologies involved in photography, film, and television. Tools. The usage of tools, we think, started at least 2.6 million years back in Ethiopia. Anthropologists believe the use of tools became an important step in the evolution of mankind. Earlier materials such as sticks and stones made tools. The invention of machine tools advanced the Industrial Revolution. Imagine how we would build or maintain previous innovations without a handy hammer. And I'll tell you, the person who engineers and makes the parts for the various things that run in our society is an artist. And they use very sophisticated kinds of machinery. And of course, we all know about the light bulb. And this is a picture of the earliest light bulb. The energy we use at home and office is a bright idea for more than 150 years ago. Pioneered in the early 19th century by Humphrey Davy, electric lights developed throughout the 1800s, one of the most influential great inventions of all times. Edison and Swan patented the first light bulb in 1879 and 1880. In the mid-1980s, we had CFLs that hit the market with the drawbacks such as high cost, bulky, low occupied, and so forth. Currently, LEDs offer the best energy savings on the market. However, the invention of the bulb electrified new businesses. It also led to new energy breakthroughs such as power plants, electric transmission lines, home appliances. It isn't just the light bulb itself, guys. The light bulb leads to other things. If there's a common theme to this list, it's that no major invention came from a single stroke of genius from a single inventor. Every invention is built by incrementally improving earlier designs, and the person usually associated with an invention is the first person to make it commercially viable. Such is the case with the light bulb. We immediately think of Thomas Edison as the electric light bulb's inventor, but dozens of people were working on similar ideas in the 1870s. When Edison developed his incandescent bulb, Joseph Swan did similar work in Britain at the same time. Eventually, the two merged their ideas into a single company called Edison. You also know that in his 2 locations where he operated, Edison had major laboratories with many people working in there. And they were trying out many different kinds of filaments, for example, before they finally settled on one that would work. And then the light bulb became a reality. But could it be that it was actually some person who was a workman in his shop who should be given credit? Probably. Light bulb. The bulb itself works by transmitting electricity through a wire with high resistance known as a filament. The waste energy created by the resistance is expelled as heat and light. Now, the glass bulb, maybe you didn't even know this, encompasses the filament in a vacuum or in an inert gas, thereby preventing combustion. You might think the light bulb changed the world by allowing people to work at night or in dark places, and it did to a substantial extent. But we already had relatively cheap and efficient gas lamps and other light sources at the time. It was actually the infrastructure that was built to provide electricity to every home and business that changed the world. Today, our world is filled with powered devices so that we can plug in pretty much anywhere. We have the light bulb to thank for it. I'm doing this from memory, so I may not have this exactly right, but in the 1930s, when Thomas Edison died, it was proposed that they turn off all of the power from all of the electric generation for 1 minute as a tribute to him. Well, even by the 1930s, you could not do that because so much depended upon the electric power that was coming into all of our homes and businesses and that runs our world. Electricity itself become the basic need for everyday life. It's been around all along, and practical applications to effectively use it were invented. Although many use electricity, how many know the evolution? In 1791, Alessandro Volta discovered the method of generating electricity. 1831, year of a major breakthrough, a British scientist, Michael Faraday, discovered the basic principles of electricity generation. The electromagnetic induction discovery revolutionized the energy usage. Streetlights were some of the earliest attention-gaining equipment. The rise in electricity usability to understand a backbone. I'm going to digress here for something that's not on the screen. When Edison, he moved from the light bulb to the point where he was actually generating power, and he had a network of distributed power in New York City. But it was relatively small because he was using something called direct current. Westinghouse came along with an alternative way, which was called alternating current. And alternating current, in fact, is the only way you can generate and distribute electricity over a long distance. So it's something that Edison did not quite finalize, that we attribute to Westinghouse. In your computer, I believe every computer that I'm aware of, especially laptops, the cord that leads away from the computer leads to a box, and the box is between the electric source and your computer. The reason for that is that the power coming into your outlet in the house is coming in as alternating current. Your computer will only use direct current. Therefore, it needs to be converted. And so the little box that's in the line between your computer and the outlet is a conversion box that converts alternating current to direct current. Maybe some of you knew that, and maybe you all knew that. I don't know, but just thought I'd expand on that. The battery. Prehistoric battery dates back to the Parthian Empire, which might be at least 2,000 years old. The old battery consisted of a clay jar filled with a vinegar solution into which a copper cylinder surrounded iron rod was inserted. These batteries might have been used to electroplate silver. The inventor of the first electric battery is our friend Alessandro Volta that I mentioned a moment ago. He also laid the foundation of electrochemistry, and some others made contributions to this as we went along, and today we have things like the nickel-cadmium battery And down below, you see your familiar batteries that you know, you use in many different things, and they come in many different sizes. And on the right is the chassis that is underneath a Tesla car. And that is the big battery that holds the power that moves that car. And it's not particularly fast to recharge, but the person who is going to be given credit in the future for a major breakthrough will be the person who can invent a battery that is small, reliable, cheap to build, and that can be recharged within a matter of moments. And that person will come up with something as we move forward. It just hasn't happened yet. So we move to another area, the printing press. In order to have a printing press be important, we have to have had paper. The world already had paper and block printing. The Chinese had them as early as the 11th century, but the complexity of their language limited popularity. Marco Polo brought the idea back to Europe in 1295. The first paper making was done in China way back, you know, in the Eastern Han period, just after AD period, early AD, and they had some ways of making paper. Later, it has to be improved and refined, and you can't use one kind of paper. Does not work for all kinds of applications. You need to have, for example, using a printing or a printing press, you need to have a particular kind of paper that will easily go through that and will not overly absorb or overly reflect the ink that you use. Earlier, we had papyrus and amite. That amite was a kind of paper that came from the bark of trees in Mexico and Central America. And parchment and amite are not true papers, but we had those. And anyway, we have wood papers that eventually come about. The printing press itself. Before the internet's ability to spread information, the printing press helped information travel throughout the globe. Developed around 1440 in Germany, Johannes Gutenberg's machine improved on an already existing presses. By 1500, Gutenberg presses were operating throughout Western Europe with a production of 20 million copies. By 1600, they had created over 200 million new books. Before that time, books were pretty much hand printed or all were created hand, one letter at a time. That's what the monks did in the monasteries. And so the number of books in the world before Gutenberg were very limited, and they were limited only to the very wealthy people. And now this expanded man's knowledge and his dissemination of knowledge. Like many inventions on this list, the man we believe invented the printing press, Johann Gutenberg, actually improved on pre-existing technologies and made them useful and efficient. What he did, combined the idea of block printing with a screw press. Up until then, the screw press had been used for olive oil and wine production. And also there's a lot of physics that goes into the screw, for one thing. He also developed metal printing blocks that were far more durable and easier to make than the hand-carved wooden letters used previously. Finally, his advances in ink, because he had to refine the ink and the paper as well, helped revolutionize the whole process of mass printing. Up until his invention, every single page had to be hand done. Now, every page still had to be hand printed, but it was a much faster process, and you could reproduce the same image many, many times. It allowed enormous quantities of information to be recorded and spread. Books that previously had been items only for the extremely rich, mass production brought the price down tremendously. Probably responsible for many other inventions, but in a more subtle way than the wheel. The diffusion of knowledge it created gave billions of humans the education they needed to create their own inventions in the century sense. because you now could build upon and read about the ideas that other people had. And so when you would see the ideas in print that other people had had, you would think, aha, I can take that idea one step further. And then we still didn't move this very fast. You still had to print one page at a time until the rotary printing press came. The rotary drum was invented by Richard Hoe in 1843. And what this allowed you to do is to put your information on a rotating drum and then feed the paper through. And it was a much, much faster. This is where the explosion of books takes place. And it makes them cheap. And it disseminates in there by the mid part of the 19th century. It is the way in which all things are produced. It also means that newspapers could be cheaply printed and disseminated so people could all read the news much more rapidly. Morse code and telegraph. The telegraph was developed around the 1830s by Samuel Morse and other inventors, which revolutionized long-distance communication. The electric signals were transmitted by a wire laid between stations. He also developed a code, which we still today know as Morse code, for the simple transmission of messages across telegraph lines. Based on the frequency of usage, the code assigned a set of dots, short marks, and dashes, long marks to English alphabet and numbers. And it wasn't as efficient as what we have in terms of our telephones and so forth today, but it was a really major breakthrough. For example, when Lincoln was giving his Lincoln-Douglas debates out in Illinois, they were able to take what was being said out in Illinois and send it by telegraph to the Eastern newspapers, and it was reprinted the next day. And so the speeches that were part of that debate were instantly available to people. Remarkable thing. Steel. Now, steel has been around pretty much forever, but it was mostly used to make weapons, swords, and other fine instruments, but it was not easy to make, and it was, you can use your imagination. It was just very expensive, very difficult to make. But finally, in the 1850s, Bessemer patents this unique process which makes steel cheap. Now steel is used in the creation of everything from bridges to skyscrapers. Oh yes, and then the bow and arrow. The oldest known evidence of arrows comes from the South African Cebudu cave. Bone and stone points considered likely to have been arrowheads found 60 to 70,000 years ago. In Eurasia, the bow and arrow reappears around the Upper Paleolithic period. So, the earliest probable arrowheads found outside of Africa, but discovered in 2020 in Sri Lanka, dated to 48,000 years ago. But anyway, the bow and arrow, we don't think of it as being that crucial, but it did things that liberated man. All of these things liberated mankind to move and do things better, to do them more efficiently, to do them more productively. Antibiotics. Antibiotics saved millions of lives by killing and inhibiting the growth of harmful bacteria, which we didn't even know about the bacteria until the 1870s. 1928, Alexander Fleming set the first leap in antibiotics by identifying penicillin. He kind of did it by accident, the chemical compound with antibiotic properties. Throughout the 20th century, antibiotics spread rapidly and proved to be a major living improvement, fighting nearly every known form of infection and protecting people's health. And basically, most of us would have died much earlier than we will now die, whatever that age may be, if it had not been and were not for antibiotics that are available to us. The most important of them, of course, has been penicillin. Drug transformed medicine by its ability to cure infectious bacterial diseases and to begin the era of antibiotics. DNA. The discovery of DNA completely changed our conception of how we work. As we map the genome and make new discoveries daily, our understanding of genetics will completely change our concept of living and of death. Contraceptives. Prevention of pregnancy is a long and determined history. The history of contraceptives dates back to 1500 BC, where ancient Egyptian women would mix honey, sodium carbonate, and crocodile dung into a thick, solid paste called pessary and insert it into their vaginas before an intercourse. Doesn't sound very pleasant to me. However, researchers believe that several old world birth control methods are not effective and indeed could be fatal. The first known form of a condom, a goat bladder, was used in Egypt 3000 BC, 5,000 years ago. 1844, Charles Goodyear patented the vulcanization of rubber, which led to the mass production of rubber condoms. In 1914, Margaret Sanger, famous birth control leader, entered that term into our language. And then later, we have the creation of the progesterone pill, which blocks ovulation and creates an international revolution. It was a huge hit. And I read an author who said that the fact that we have such ready access to birth control has resulted in fact, a reduction in crime in our society. X-ray. Of course, X-rays are a phenomenon of the natural world and thus can't be invented, but they were discovered accidentally. The invisible was made visible in 1895. X-ray is undoubtedly one of the epoch-making advancements in the field of medicine. Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen, while testing other cathode rays, whether cathode rays could pass through glass, noticed a glow coming from a nearby chemically treated screen. Because of their unknown nature, he named it as X-rays. Through his observation, he learned that X-rays could be photographed when they penetrate into human flesh. First used in 1897 during the Balkan War to find bullets and broken bones. In 1901, he received, and he should have, the Nobel Prize for Physics in his work. The camera, and I think I'm going to kind of cap it all off at this point. We all know the significance of how the camera has, in fact, made it possible. So there's virtually no time when you're in the public when you're not being photographed. As I go up and down my street out here, just like on the front of my house, I have a camera that's recording any motion that moves in front of my house. And so it's very hard to do anything or go anywhere these days. The first real photography takes place in the early 19th century. Eiffel Tower, I'm not pronouncing his name very well. He makes the first permanent photograph. By 1840, we have the daguerreotypes, and we have a lot of other pictures. The oldest president for whom we actually have a photograph is John Quincy Adams. At the time, he was congressman from Massachusetts, but every other president since then, we have actual photographs of them. And from 1896 forward, we actually have movies of all of the presidential inaugurations that have occurred. And I think that's just about an hour's worth, and I think I will stop at that point. That's a lot of information.